Today we're going to talk about building a hub for your organization. Kind of a 30-minute talk, probably do it in 23. I'm going to break down the hub in a couple of different sections and just give you an overview of how you could do this. A couple of tips about planning for your hub and how it's going to be designed. If you're interested in some more technical detail about the product itself, we have a session at 2:30, which will teach more of the mechanics behind building these websites and pages and things like that. Think of this as a flyover of the application. So the Hub's product statement is an easy-to-configure cloud platform for organizations to collaborate with their external communities to accomplish information-driven projects. When I say external communities, you can think of sometimes the public, but also maybe the organizations you work with that are not part of your organization. So they don't necessarily always have to be the anonymous public. You can use the Hub to engage with any group that you might work with that is not in the walls of your organization. The Hub is a part of ArcGIS Online. It's available. There's kind of two tiers to it. Hub Basic is available with your subscriptions, and it lets you launch sites and pages. And then there's a premium piece that I'll talk about here in a little bit. So why would you want to do this? Why work with your external community? Well, you can do your GIS work in silos, and that can work for a period of time. But if you just keep the information locked away, then only your team, your department, is going to get value out of it. So the first thing you want to do with the Hub is launch some sort of external site that features all of your GIS data. This can be useful internally for your non-GIS colleagues. The Hub's websites are very, I would say, user-friendly, based off of search engines and easy-to-use web pages. So it's good for your non-GIS colleagues. It's good for expert anonymous public, like commercial real estate developers, journalists, expert citizens. And this site that you might launch initially with the Hub, is sometimes referred to as an open data site. That's if you're like a government and you want to share your data externally. But you can kind of think of if you're a private business and you want to share data to another business, that's another way you can use it. But if I tell my mom about an open data site, she goes, "What's that?" So there's a gap, right, between all of your GIS data being made available in the public and the rest of the community understanding and being able to help you achieve your projects. So the Hub also allows you to launch multiple sites. We recommend you launch these sites around projects or things that you're doing to engage different groups around different projects. I live on a street that is being renovated in Washington, D.C. They're spending $13 million. They're doing a lot of stuff around my house. I lost my street sign. I'm going to engage around that project more likely than I will with an open data site. People who engage with like a site of all your data are like your, experts, your scientists, your GIS people. So the Hub tries to help you go from this progression where it's just GIS data to my GIS data put in a form factor that other people can experience to my GIS data is a little bit more interesting and maybe even engaging. I'm going to walk through how you can do that. If you've ever shared something externally, you spent the time to put it out there for the public, it has this nice side effect internally. Because the effort you spend to make your data easier to understand for somebody who doesn't work for you will make it easier to understand across your departments. So, and data is most likely not something that's just interesting inside of a department, but fully interesting to others in your organization. So there's this kind of like nice side effect that can happen of sharing data where once you start doing it, it also benefits your organization as well. People know where to get your data, and they don't have to be an expert in GIS to do so. So let me give you a demo of kind of the different levels of this and what it can look like. So being a Washington, D.C. native, I always pull up this site. Washington, D.C. initially launched with a site like this. This is their open data site. This is on top of ArcGIS Online. They can feature their favorite apps and maps. They can feature other content. They have like a browse data by theme. They kind of queue the user in terms of what data is available. The experts can come to this and just click enter, search for something specific, and I'm given 1,200 results from their GIS system that's in ArcGIS Online. And I can then take one of these pieces of data and zoom out again. And this is equivalent of like an item details page for the public. I can look at this data. I can, if I'm interested in it, one-click download this data pretty easily. And I can preview it in a data table. By the way, I'm running off my cell phone because I had some problems earlier, so I think I'm probably running into those problems again, but trust me, it works. So this is kind of like level 1 of the hub. You curate a bunch of data and you share it out to the public. And it's now also indexed in Google, so a lot of people will be able to find it. The hub also allows you to do things like custom domains. If you look at the URL, you don't really know that you're in a GIS system. Nowhere on this page does it say ArcGIS, except for maybe in like the comment section of the code of the HTML. So that's kind of like the first thing you can do, and that's a lot of how the hub got started, making these open public sites. But we started to see people evolve and make sites that were a little bit more engaging. So same customer, different website. This is the urban wood reuse for schools. Enjoy sitting on a piece of DC history. What's the purpose of this project? Nowhere on here are we talking about GIS data. Where is it sourced? How does it work? Still have questions, available products, what's happening? And then there's these calls to action to maybe attend an event and do something. So some people actually launch sites that have absolutely nothing to do with GIS to get people to come in to where they can train them, say, hey, we need you to go out and tell us something. We need to give you a survey. We need your help. Try to like enroll the external people to their community into things that they're doing. So that's just another way you can use this. And then my last example is kind of similar, just to show how the hub can seamlessly integrate into web properties. This is our mayor. She's got projects, most of them do. And this is not a website made in the hub. This is something probably made in like WordPress or something like that. But at the bottom here, there's this by the numbers section. And if I click on one of these, which I'm going to not trust my internet connection, it takes me into their GIS system. I'm looking at data. They can embed things from Tableau. I can look at this one, which has their feature data, like active off of their GIS. And then if I click up, I can get back to that data site that I was just at before. So it's like I just seamlessly fell into a GIS system as a person, and I had no idea. So that's kind of the spirit of this. The non-GIS people, whether they're citizens, I just did a citizen to city example, but you can think of, I'm going to use another example. The Red Cross has premium donors. They can use the hub to engage those premium donors, like big companies such as Target and Walmart, that have resources that they share with the Red Cross. And they need their GIS data to be updated where those resources are at any given time so that when disaster strikes, they know. So they need to give capabilities to those partners. And they need those capabilities to not be buried behind GIS. They need it to just be exposed in a simple form factor. So that's kind of the overview demo of really what we're trying to get at with the hub. So how do you do it? Unfortunately, it's a little bit tricky. And a lot of people ask me, hey, like, do I have the hub? Do I have to pay for the hub? And the answer is there's a hub basic included in every subscription to ArcGIS Online. But the reason you probably haven't stumbled into it is because you have to do some steps to turn it on. I'm hoping in a future release of Online we'll make this easier. But if you haven't ever turned it on, you might as well give it a try. All you have to do is have an administrator. You're going to enable a setting in your org called Open Data. And then there's some extra user privileges that you'll need to be able to work within the app. We would love this to be 2 steps. Like get into the app, have the right privileges, and do it. So we're working on that actively. The Hub admin app, once you have these privileges, will show up in your app launcher, and you'll be able to launch into an administrative experience where you can launch websites that feature a subset of your ArcGIS Online content. You can also decide who is authorized to work on this platform. It's important because if you let everybody do it and you put a custom domain out there, then somebody could just log in and make a website that has your organization's branding on it, maybe even make it public if you let them. That could be bad. So you get to kind of decide as the team that administers this, who do you want in your organization to be able to do this? So that's this kind of final step. When you're in the admin application, you can use this team tab to basically authorize users of your org to do it. So my recommendation, if you haven't ever built a hub before, is to start small. Build a proof of concept. Pick one thing. Don't do a bunch of things, just do one. There's kind of the internal / private type sites use cases, which could be like, I want to build a website for a department in my organization that is already consuming data from ArcGIS Online, but today is looking at the group content page and it's kind of like, doesn't have any context. to like having kind of that data clearinghouse. Here's how to download some data. Here's the latest from the GIS team. Those are good use cases to start with. Externally, a popular one is an open data site. If you are an organization that shares any sort of data publicly, build an open data site. And if you have a project in mind, you could start with trying to build a project site as well. So a lot of ways to start. Don't know, just build an internal or external data site featuring your organization's ArcGIS Online content, but in a nice form factor for the non-GIS user. That's very popular. So some examples, there are a lot. We're in ArcGIS Online, so good news is a lot of things to draw from. And I have a slide on the next that'll give you a link to a website that lists these, so you don't have to worry about trying to read them. But this is a Northwest Resiliency project. This is a city website that also features a lot of their financials, the public financial information. This is a water project going on abroad in Europe. This is a city dashboard kind of showing the key performance metrics and the data behind it. Many of those data sets are actually inside of the organization's GIS system. And this is that open data site we were just looking at. Internally, you can do the same thing. You can build the police site for your police department if you're in ArcGIS Online. Just a shout out to enterprise sites, which is new in 10.6.1. If you can't do this in online, there is a website tech very similar in enterprise now as of 10.6.1. The talk I'm giving later today will actually cover both of these. So internal use cases are also welcome. These are all items at the end of the day, so they respect how you share them. So if you don't share them publicly, they will have a login screen. They'll log in through your portal, through your enterprise security, however you've set up however you've set up ArcGIS Online. Building a site is pretty straightforward. We wanted to leverage existing workflows that people do in Portal and ArcGIS Online. So it's kind of the usual story here. You know, put your server data that may be on your own servers or the servers that we provide in ArcGIS Online. Put your external APIs, create items for them in ArcGIS Online. Put those items into groups, and then for each site you can decide what's the catalog for this. The nice thing about it is even if you make a site that features 100 items, if a user logs in, they can only see 20. They'll only see 20. So you can make the site as encompassing as you want. So I'm going to show that. Just really easy. So I'm going to log in. And actually, let's go to ArcGIS Online just so you can kind of see. This assumes I threw the switch in my org, but if I have the switch thrown and I have the user permissions, I can click this hub tile. We also have an open data tile. It's kind of like our past, but it's going to go away at some point. So get used to clicking the hub. Taken to this hub admin application. This is where if I'm building my first site, I have a couple pre-steps I have to do. I'd have to go into online and make sure I have some groups with my content that I want. I'm going to pretend I did that really fast. But then I can click create new site. And I can give my site a name. So if I am doing that kind of external GIS sharing, I can give my site a URL. So sharing external data. And you can see my URL, maybe you can't see. Oh, there we go. Has a domain in front that you can configure. It uses your org short and then hub.arcgis.com. So that's how you'll access it. You can customize this with a custom domain if you'd like. That takes some IT people. So if you're not familiar with that, you'll have to read our documentation. But a lot of our users like to do that. This is where I get to pick what my catalog will be for this given site. So I can find different groups that I've already created in my portal. I'm going to see if she's got, yes, I can see what's in there. Crashes in DC. Okay, I'll take this data and I'll add it to my site. And again, as many as you want. And again, if I privately shared an item in that group, it'll stay privately shared, which is nice. So when I click next, I'm taken to this editor. And this is where we get to make a lot of decisions in terms of that user experience that we want. I'm not going to go through everything, but you have a lot of control here in terms of you can customize the header system and edit it in rich text now. You can edit the code if you're one of those types of people and you have an existing header system. I recommend, and I'll talk about this in a minute, that you make it blend in with maybe some existing web properties you have. You can change the theme of the site. All of this content is editable as I move my mouse around, so I'm able to do things like change the image that's on the background of this row and upload my own maybe, or do any number of other customizations. So And this item is an item, so I can decide who can see it. And if I want to do something more advanced, I can go into ArcGIS Online, and I'll see I just made an item in my content, and I can custom share it and do things like that. So that was my first site. Oh, let's preview it. I'm sorry. So you can kind of see. So I didn't make it public, so I got to sign in. Pretty basic website. Didn't change anything. And when I search it, there's my one piece of data that's in it, and I could then, as a user, download it. And again, maybe you just want to share this with some employees, and that's it. That's a great use of this. Maybe you want to go broadly and build something public. You get the map visualization and the data tab and all that good stuff. So this is kind of our maturity curve. You know, this is history of the application as well as the history of how you'll probably use the application. You'll start by one-way engagement. Here's my data, share it out to whoever my external community is, even other internal communities that don't use your GIS system. And this is a great way to start. We call this Hub Basic. It's like, just get your data out there, get it on the web, get a website that is in a GIS system and feels like something else, and embed it with something else. So if you've done this, which you're at this point, now you get to put on your thinking cap and do some planning. There's a saying for scuba divers of plan the dive and dive the plan. It's a good idea at this juncture to do a plan. Otherwise, you'll have to do it later. And I've seen that. Because what we want to do now is maybe make our sites more elaborate, have kind of a site map, organizing some data around initiatives, maybe creating some app, and having different sub-teams manage their different projects, and it all gets more complicated from here. So if you don't plan it, you have your proof of concept site, you built your open data site. So next, we're going to use more Hub Basic functionality, and we're going to kind of get into some premium functionality you can license, but I'll talk about that at the very end. But all this is still doable with your base online subscription. So I recommend doing something called a sitemap. It sounds really elaborate. People will like it. It's a fun activity. If you don't do it, you're going to build a bunch of islands in an archipelago. Yes, I always say that word wrong. And they'll be different from each other. They won't feel like one thing. And it'll be, eventually some CIO or manager or somebody will be like, the hell are you doing? There's all these different sites and they all look different. So you can do this if you're cool with it, but from personal experience, I feel like it's better to have a plan. I'm a planner too. I do product planning, so maybe it's just me. So rather than an archipelago, maybe go with a city kind of plan. You want to build like a center that has all of the stuff, and then you want to have neighborhoods and regions, and my projects can hang one place. So you can either be like a bunch of islands, or you can be a city planner and kind of plan your website to be this well thought out system. And you have to ask yourself two really important questions. One is there some place in your organization already that you need to fit into? Is there some place people are already going to find information, internally or externally, depending on who your audience is? Try to fit in with that if you can. If you don't, maybe you'll find out later you have to. If you don't, maybe you'll find out later that person's mad enough, they say turn your thing offline, and your project kind of fails even though it had a lot of users. I've seen these things happen. We can also match with that site editor I showed you, the header system, and do all sorts of things like that. So that's like a good way to do it. The other thing you need to ask yourself is, do you need like a root site that gets you around everything? Do you need the kind of lighthouse that you can go to that says, here's all my stuff? That will probably be most engaging for people who are really interested in your organization or people internal. So those two questions will help inform your strategy. This is kind of how things start. You'll make some sites. And the first thing you can do is you could customize ArcGIS Online's home page to be that jumping off point. So without any work, you can just take all those site items and make sure they have pretty thumbnails and put them in your home page of your of ArcGIS Online, and you'll get something like this. Just tiles linking you to all the different sites. It's better than nothing. People are trained to go to this, especially if you've been telling them to, go to the ArcGIS, log in, this is the page. So you can customize this and make this that jumping off point. Option two, it's going to get more sophisticated. Say, no, we're going to have governance. We have a brand, and by God, we're going to adhere to it. So in this example, if you watch the top of the sites, you use the same header system, the same maybe custom header, maybe same theme, maybe same logo in every site that you make. And this is why picking a website team is important. If you decide on a rule like this, then you're going to want to make sure that the people involved in the projects and working on the different sites are all playing by the same game. And then option 3 is saying, you know, I want that first top site thing to be really fully customized. So I'm going to make a site for that too, and I'm going to train people to go to that site instead. That's that kind of open data dc.gov site. That's their root site. All the stuff they have kind of hangs under it. And then there's kind of option 3A, which is that thing I showed you just a moment ago, where I have a website and I'm just going to put a link in it, and then it's going to pop out all my GIS stuff, and I'll have links back to that website. Cool thing about hyperlinking is you can do it from any web property to any other web property. So we don't need to own everything. We just own the GIS pages, and then you integrate it with the broader system. And also think about this internally too. Do you have like a wiki, or we in Esri have something called Compass, or Confluence, or any of these internal systems? It's all the same truth inside of your organization as well. Where are people used to going to finding resources? Can you put it in that Okta dashboard, the single sign-on list that has all the stuff, the tools that are out there, and get it integrated? Because you need to go where people are, or else they won't find it. The reality of the public is they're going to find you probably through Google, or a social media share, or a news article, or something like that. But internal staff don't have those luxuries, so they'll find you however they find things. And don't forget, once you do this, you're not constrained to 2 levels. So your sitemap also needs to plan for this little thing called pages. Underneath each site, we can make multiple pages. And that gives a lot of flexibility underneath. So that project site that needs to have a timeline page and about this project and why are we doing it and where's the budget coming from and who's the sponsors, put that stuff in the pages and make this really light and very direct so that users can get to what you want them to get to and get out quickly. How do you make a sitemap literally? Bullet list. It's really cool stuff. You can also use PowerPoint. There's Smart Art is a good way because you can build these like trees. I have fancy software from a prior job. You can do something like this where I have my home site and my sub-sites and my sub-pages and different projects. And it's a good idea to do this though. It's a good activity. It's going to be you've proved the concept. People like the way the websites look and experience, and now you can just take it from there. The other really reality of it is you're probably going to do this, which is good too. Whiteboarding, drawing squares and boxes and arrows and making some decisions. And again, try to enroll the right stakeholders. Don't make the room too big. Get the right number of people and decide how you're going to integrate with that existing property, write URLs over it, all that good stuff. So I've talked a lot about building a site, and these subsites are often project-y because that's that kind of more engaging site. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So before I made just this, vanilla site. I went to the Sites tab and clicked New. That's a good way to make that kind of top-level site. It's kind of blank. But you can also come to this tab called Initiatives, and click Create New. And I can give it a project like, will this demo theater end on time? Hopefully. And this will create, what's nice about the initiatives is this will create all of the things behind the scenes to make each project its own self-contained unit of work. That means that every project or initiative comes with its own team. So that's where you can say, okay, we're going to agree to the same header system. Now I'm going to make a bunch of initiatives that hang underneath, and I'm going to give and make a team for each one. Somebody's going to manage this, and I can decide who in my organization that has an ArcGIS Online account is going to be managing this. I see my colleague Dave back there. We'll see if Dave's in here. Oh, Dave, come on. Let's do Andrew. Andrew's always a safe bet to managing things. So he gets invited to this team, and now he can edit this site. And as kind of the GIS admin, I can step away. They can log in and they can edit this. This is the site. I can also add other engaging content. Maybe I want to add a survey because this is a project and I want to collect some information. So we kind of surface some key WebGIS capabilities. So I'm going to launch this survey, and this is the thing that I shouldn't have clicked because the survey has to make the feature service and the feature service layer and the other thing and this, that, and the other thing. It's all going through my cell phone and it's getting really warm. But I can pull in all my WebGIS items to this project and basically make it something that everybody who's in this team can work with. Now I can jump into the website, and we give you a different template here that's a little bit more project-y. So, name of your initiative, tell us why people should care. You have 3 seconds to capture somebody's attention, especially about something like this. You saw that DC urban forestry in Washington, D.C. That one was pretty quick to explain what it's about. Some progress, show some stats and data. Get involved, big link to the survey. What do you want them to do? So that's kind of like a project-y website. So the last step is some features that we are bundling in something we call Hub Premium. This allows you to give external people that don't work for your organization ArcGIS identity. This is important if you have anybody you work with that is emailing you stuff. Like if you have a nonprofit group you're working with, you have another business, that Walmart donors, that premium donors, like they probably want to give data to Walmart, but today they're struggling. So that's what this is all about, getting to sustained engagement where your team that's working on a project isn't just made up of people who work for your organization. You can scale your organization with people outside. So the difference is you can launch events now. You can convert the anonymous public taking that survey into actual named users. They get creator user types in your community. And they can do anything you want them to do. And they can help achieve your goals with like real boots on the ground. You give them any capability you want. Use WebGIS and the website to explain the context. And those external community users can also be your business partners as well. We actually find that, especially cities, they end up working more with advocacy groups and nonprofits. And businesses end up working with the businesses they're already working with. And those are kind of the initial communities that form. It's not like a lot of people will just find the site and immediately volunteer to take pictures of potholes, but there probably is a bicycle group that would love to do that. So try to find those groups and activate them. Have events to teach them about what you want them to do. Use the website as a GIS system that doesn't look like one, and it all starts to click. And so this is an example. You have this extra org that gets licensed. And the nice thing is all the users that are signing up that are external to your org don't get access to all your data. They're over there. But all the stuff that you're working on is over here. And it's all managed that way. So how can I show that? Let's make this public. Actually, incognito is going to be my friend here. So I'm going to join DC's hub. You guys can too. I don't know what they're going to think about that. I shouldn't probably tell you to do that, but you could. And I'm going to use my Google. And actually, in the next release of ArcGIS Online later this month, you'll be able to sign up with email address, which is great because a lot of people have concerns about social media giving it to people. So I think email will probably be more popular this year than it has been in other years. My poor cell phone has to now do my two-factor. Good job, cell phone. I just made an account with their community org. And actually, I'm a creator. I'm credit budgeted. I can't do too much, but now I can take their apps and I can do it with my identity. You can also share items to require the user to be in that organization. So they have to sign up to take that survey. And you can get better data from your users and then give them any of the great tools you can talk about with any of these folks in this room. All the apps and all the same use cases you would have internally or with your field staff, you can now have with people who don't work for you if you license this, which is pretty cool. Any questions? Yep. The question, yep. The question, I know I have like 2 minutes. The question is, curious about the licensing model for those users. Do you pay for their access? Yes, you do, but at a much, much discounted rate over what you pay for an employee. Because we know they're not going to do as much with that user. So the scale is very economical and good. Other question? Correct, good question. The question was, does the same concept apply to sites and enterprise? At this time, no. There's no idea of like multiple orgs, but enterprise, you get unlimited viewer users. So, not creators, yeah. So it does not apply at this point. Question was, is this live right now? Yes. That's buried behind all those settings. We're going to fix that, but it's there. Check it out. We're also over at the booth. I think I'm at my time. If you have questions, find me after. I can give you a business card or we can catch up at one of the expo floor. Thank you so much.